Never thought I'd find myself here, in the heart of New York, living a life that seems like someone else's story. It's funny how life takes you places you never expected. I'm Mark, by the way, a sales exec who travels more than he's home. And this bustling, never sleeping city? It's a part of me, just like my soon-to-be not-so-wife, Sarah. It all started on a typical Thursday evening. We were dining at La Maison, our favorite spot in the quaint neighborhood of Greenwich Village, known for its bohemian history and artistic vibe. Over a candlelit table, amidst the clatter of the city that somehow felt a million miles away, Sarah dropped the bombshell. "I want an open marriage," she said, as casually as if she were commenting on the weather. My world, much like the historic buildings of Greenwich, felt like it was crumbling, each brick of trust and love falling apart. I didn't yell. I didn't storm out. Instead, I suggested something wild, something so unlike me. "Let's take a year off. No calls, no texts, total freedom," I said. Maybe it was the spirit of Greenwich's rebellious past speaking through me, or maybe it was the fear of losing her completely. So, we did it. She moved to Los Angeles, a city as vibrant and unpredictable as her new lifestyle. And me? I dove into work. I traveled from the snowy peaks of Denver to the sunny shores of Miami, meeting clients, expanding the business. Each city was a new chapter, a new adventure, contrasting sharply with the historic charm and familiarity of Greenwich. Sarah, I heard, was living a life of endless parties and new faces. Friends in LA said she was unrecognizable, a free spirit in this city of angels. While she danced under the neon lights, I shook hands in boardrooms, my business reaching heights I never imagined. The success was exhilarating but hollow, much like the towering skyscrapers of New York, impressive yet impersonal. The more I traveled, the more I realized that every city, with its unique character and culture, mirrored parts of my life. Denver's rugged mountains reflected my resilience. Miami's lively streets echoed my newfound confidence, but none had the comfort of Greenwich. None had Sarah. Our year apart was a journey through contrasting worlds, her in the sunlit, carefree lanes of LA, me in the fast-paced, ambitious streets of New York. But it was more than just physical distance. It was a journey of self-discovery, of unraveling layers we never knew existed. I started to understand that, like the cities I visited, we were complex, made of layers of history, choices, and dreams. Our marriage, once a familiar neighborhood, had become a sprawling metropolis, full of unknown streets and hidden alleys. As the year drew to a close, I couldn't help but wonder if Sarah and I, like the diverse cities we inhabited, could ever find a common ground again. Could the historic charm of Greenwich, with its intimate cafes and cobbled streets, ever merge with the glitzy, fast-paced life of LA? Our year of freedom was ending, but it felt like the start of something new, something uncertain. The city lights of New York blinked in the distance, a reminder that, like this city, life is unpredictable, always moving, always changing. And me? I was just a man caught in the whirlwind, waiting to see where I'd land next. Life's like a jazz tune in New Orleans, full of unexpected turns, improvisations, and, sometimes, a bit of blues. That's where I found myself, right in the thick of Bourbon Street's bustling energy, trying to drown out my loneliness with the city's vibrant rhythms. A mark, by the way. Ever since Sarah and I took our unconventional break, my life's been in a series of business trips and lonely hotel rooms. New Orleans, though, it's different. It's got soul, a heartbeat that resonates with my own turmoil. As I walked past the historic buildings, each with its own story, I couldn't help but think about Sarah, exploring her new life in LA. I heard she was taking risks, delving into a lifestyle so different from the woman I married. It stung, but then again, we were both lost in our own mazes. Meanwhile, my work was skyrocketing. I closed deals I never thought possible, rubbing shoulders with the big guns. Yet, in the quiet of my room, overlooking the Mississippi, success felt hollow. The city's jazz-filled nights were a stark contrast to my silent victories. Then, one evening, amidst the neon-lit streets and the echoes of saxophones, I bumped into an old college friend, Jenna. She was a photographer, capturing the essence of New Orleans in her lens. Our reconnection was like finding a familiar melody in a new song. Jenna understood me, filling the void that success couldn't. As our romance blossomed against the backdrop of this historic city, Sarah was entangled in her own drama. She met a man, someone who stirred memories she couldn't place. Their affair was intense, shrouded in the mystery that often clings to the Hollywood hills. I heard bits and pieces about her mysterious man, just rumors floating in the air like the city's jazz notes. They said he had connections to her past, a past she thought she left behind in Greenwich's quaint streets. Back in New Orleans, Jenna and I were inseparable. She showed me the city through her eyes, the vibrant Mardi Gras parades, the serene beauty of the Garden District, the haunting tales of the French Quarter. Our relationship was a whirlwind, a passionate dance to the city's unending rhythm. But Sarah's affair was a different tune. It was complex, full of secrets and unspoken words. The man she was with, he was like a shadow from our shared past, a ghost in our separated lives. New Orleans taught me that life is a mix of joy and sorrow, much like its music. Jenna brought light into my life, but the thought of Sarah with another man, especially someone from our past, was a haunting melody I couldn't shake off. As the city celebrated its rich history and diverse culture, I couldn't help but reflect on my own journey. Sarah and I, we were like two notes in a jazz song, once harmonizing perfectly, now playing our separate tunes. The city, with its blend of old-world charm and modern vibrancy, was a mirror to our lives. We were all part of a larger story, our individual melodies contributing to the grand tapestry of life. In the heart of New Orleans, amidst its lively streets and soulful music, I found both love and a piercing reminder of what I had lost. Jenna was my present, a beautiful, unexpected chapter in my life. But Sarah, she was a song from my past, playing on in the background, a tune I couldn't quite let go of. As the sun sets over the rolling hills of Tuscany, casting a golden hue on the vineyards, I find myself at a crossroads, both in business and in life. I'm Mark, a once successful entrepreneur whose world seems to be crumbling faster than an ancient Italian ruin. Tuscany, with its rich history and breathtaking landscapes, was supposed to be a retreat from the chaos. But as I stand here, amidst the timeless beauty of this land, my thoughts are thousands of miles away, in Los Angeles, where Sarah, my estranged wife, is entangled in a love affair with a man I never expected to re-enter our lives, my brother. The vineyards around me speak of a legacy, of roots running deep into the earth, much like the bond one thought my brother and I shared. Yet, here I am, blindsided by the revelation of his return and his involvement with Sarah. The irony isn't lost on me. Amidst the splendor of Tuscany, a place known for its enduring family ties, my own family is unraveling. The trouble started with my business. What began as a minor setback spiraled into a full-blown crisis. Deals fell through, investors backed out, and the financial strain began to erode my new relationship with Jenna, the photographer who had brought light into my life. Like the ancient buildings of Tuscany, my professional empire was showing cracks, threatening to collapse under its own weight. Meanwhile, Sarah was facing her own turmoil. Discovering that her new lover was my estranged brother shook her to the core. Their affair, once a thrilling escape, now felt like a betrayal too deep to ignore. In Los Angeles, a city known for its illusions, Sarah's reality was crumbling, revealing a web of deceit and forbidden desires. Our lives, once intertwined like the grapevines of Tuscany, were now as disjointed as the cobblestone streets of its medieval towns. As I wandered through these streets, the weight of my failing business and the loss of Jenna heavy on my shoulders, I couldn't help but feel like a stranger in my own life. Back in LA, Sarah's confrontation with my brother reached a fever pitch. The truth was out, and with it came a flood of emotions, guilt, betrayal, and a forbidden love that threatened to upend everything. She considered leaving it all behind, tempted by the allure of a love that was as intoxicating as the finest Tuscan wine, but as forbidden as the fruit from the Garden of Eden. As the Tuscan sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the landscape, I realized that this place, with its enduring beauty and timeless traditions, was a stark contrast to my fractured life. The rolling hills and ancient vineyards stood as a testament to survival and resilience, something I desperately needed to find within myself. In this moment of solitude, surrounded by the quiet beauty of Tuscany, I understood that my journey was not just about rebuilding a business or mending a broken heart. It was about rediscovering who I was, about finding a way to weave the fragmented pieces of my life back together, much like the intricate tapestries for which this region is famous. As the chapter of my life in Tuscany comes to a close, I'm left with more questions than answers. Can the bonds of family be restored, or are they as irreparable as the ruins that this ancient landscape? Can love find a way to blossom amidst the wreckage of betrayal and loss? The answers, I realize, are not found in the rolling hills of Tuscany, but within the depths of my own heart, a journey I'm only just beginning. The neon lights of Las Vegas blurred into a dizzying array of colors as I walked down the strip. My mind is chaotic as the city's pulsating energy. I'm Mark, a guy who used to have it all: a thriving business, a beautiful wife, Sarah, and a future so bright it could outshine the Vegas lights. Now, I was just another lost soul in Sin City, my life spiraling out of control. Vegas, with its glitzy casinos and relentless optimism, seemed like the perfect place to turn my luck around. My business had gone under, swallowed by a sea of bad decisions and worse luck. What started as a minor setback had snowballed into bankruptcy, dragging my personal life down with it. Back in Los Angeles, Sarah was at a crossroads of her own. The man she'd been seeing, the mysterious figure who'd swept her off her feet, turned out to be my estranged brother. He was pressuring her to leave me for good. A final blow I wasn't sure I could withstand. So there I was, in Vegas, the city of second chances, throwing what little I had left at the blackjack tables. Each hand I played was a desperate attempt to claw my way back, to regain some semblance of the life I'd lost. But Vegas is a cruel mistress, and soon, I was drowning in debt, my losses piling up like the city's never-ending skyscrapers. Sarah, meanwhile, was beginning to see the true colors of her lover. The charm and excitement that had once drawn her in were fading, revealing a manipulative nature she couldn't ignore. The City of Angels, with its facade of glamour and success, was showing its darker side, much like the man she thought she knew. As I wandered the neon-lit streets of Vegas, I couldn't help but reflect on how my life had become a gamble, each decision more reckless than the last. The city, known for its high stakes and hedonistic pleasures, was a mirror to my own downfall, a place where dreams could be made or shattered in an instant. But it was in the depths of my despair, amidst the cacophony of slot machines and the false promises of quick wins, that I had a moment of clarity. Like the desert surrounding Vegas, stripped bare and exposed, I saw my life for what it had become, a series of gambles that had cost me everything I held dear. It was time for a change. It was time to leave the glittering lights of Vegas behind and face the harsh daylight. I decided to rebuild my life, to claw my way back from the brink, not with the turn of a card, but through hard work and determination. As the sun rose over the Nevada desert, casting long shadows over the city that never sleeps, I knew my journey was just beginning. Vegas, with its relentless energy and unapologetic extravagance, had taught me a valuable lesson, that the biggest gamble in life is not on the tables, but in the choices we make every day. And so, with a heart heavy with regret, but a spirit renewed with purpose, I left Las Vegas behind, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. My story was far from over, and unlike the fleeting fortunes of this city, I was determined to build something lasting, something real. Vegas had been my downfall, but it would also be the place where I found the strength to rise again. There I was, standing on the rain-soaked streets of Seattle, a city known for its relentless drizzle and moody skies, much like the tumultuous storm raging in my life. I'm Mark, once a high-flying entrepreneur, now a man teetering on the brink of ruin. Seattle, with its blend of historic charm and modern vibrancy, was a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding in my personal life. As I walked past the iconic Space Needle, towering above the city like a sundial, I couldn't help but feel dwarfed by the enormity of my problems. Back in Los Angeles, Sarah, my estranged wife, was preparing to confront the man she'd been having an affair with, my brother. The revelation of their betrayal was a blow I never saw coming. It shattered whatever bond we had left, leaving me reeling with anger and disbelief. The confrontation was imminent. Sarah, once lost in the allure of a forbidden romance, now saw the harsh truth of her actions. Her affair, once a thrilling escape, had caused irreparable damage, much like the relentless rain that eroded the streets of Seattle. Meanwhile, my own troubles were mounting. The gambling debts I had accumulated in a desperate bid to salvage my business had come back to haunt me. The lenders were not the forgiving kind, and their threats were as dark and foreboding as the storm clouds hanging over the city. The confrontation between Sarah and my brother was explosive, a tempest of emotions that mirrored the turbulent weather of Seattle. The affair that had seemed so intoxicating in the sunny climes of Los Angeles now felt sordid and tainted. As for me, my confrontation with my brother was violent, a physical manifestation of the anger and betrayal that had been simmering inside me. It was a moment of reckoning, a breaking point that left our relationship in tatters, much like the worn and weathered facades of Seattle's historic buildings. In the aftermath, Sarah came to a decision. She wanted to return to me, to try and mend the broken pieces of our marriage. But the path to reconciliation was fraught with obstacles, much like navigating the steep hills and winding streets of Seattle. My own journey was no less challenging. As I evaded the dangerous lenders, narrowly escaping their clutches, I realized that my life had become a precarious balancing act, much like the city balanced between its historic past and its tech-driven future. Seattle, with its contrasting landscapes of urban grit and natural beauty, was a reflection of the dual nature of my life, the struggle to find stability in a world that was constantly shifting. The city's resilience in the face of relentless rain became a source of inspiration, a reminder that even the most prolonged storms eventually pass. As I walked along the waterfront, watching the ferries glide across the Puget Sound, I pondered the uncertain future that lay ahead. Sarah's decision to come back to me was a glimmer of hope, but the road to rebuilding our marriage was as daunting as the towering Cascade Mountains that loomed in the distance. The city of Seattle, with its ever-changing weather and resilient spirit, had taught me an invaluable lesson, that life, like the weather, is unpredictable, but it's in the midst of the storm that we often find our true strength. And as the rain finally began to ease, giving way to a tentative ray of sunlight, I felt a cautious optimism that, perhaps, there was still a chance for us to weather this storm together. Hey everyone! I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really helps me out and lets me know you appreciate the content. Also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing is a great way to stay updated with all the latest videos and to be part of our growing community. It's quick, it's free, and it ensures you won't miss out on any upcoming content. So go ahead, smash that like button and subscribe. Your support means a lot and keeps this channel going. Thanks for watching. The golden hues of a San Francisco sunset painted the sky as I found myself wandering the streets, lost in thought. This city, with its iconic Golden Gate Bridge and rolling hills, had always been a place of new beginnings. A mark, and I thought I had started a new chapter here, but fate had other plans. San Francisco, known for its eclectic mix of historic charm and modern innovation, mirrored the tumultuous journey my life had taken. Once a successful businessman, I was now a man broken by betrayal and burdened by debt. Back in our home in Greenwich Village, Sarah, my estranged wife, had returned, hoping to salvage what was left of our marriage. She found our house empty, a stark reminder of the distance that had grown between us. The quaint, bohemian streets of Greenwich, once a symbol of our shared dreams, now echoed with the silence of our fractured relationship. Desperate to find me, Sarah scoured the city, her search a painful journey through the memories of our life together. Each familiar landmark, from Washington Square Park to the winding streets of Soho, was a reminder of a happier time. A time before secrets and lies had torn us apart. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, I wrestled with the decision to reach out to her. The city, with its relentless energy and iconic landmarks like Alcatraz Island and Lombard Street, was a constant reminder of freedom and confinement. much like the turmoil in my heart. The moment Sarah and I reunited, it was as if the fog that perpetually shrouds San Francisco had lifted, revealing the raw pain and hope in our eyes. Our reunion, under the shadow of the city's towering skyscrapers, was tense and emotional, a fragile thread holding together the pieces of our broken marriage. We agreed to give our relationship one last chance. Like the city itself, which had rebuilt after the devastating earthquake of 1906, we too were determined to rebuild from the ruins. But the past, much like the city's infamous fog, loomed over us, threatening to obscure our path forward. As we cautiously navigated the rebuilding of our relationship, the ghost of my gambling debts in Las Vegas reared its ugly head. The lenders, unforgiving and ruthless, kidnapped me, demanding a ransom that seemed as insurmountable as the steep hills of San Francisco. Sarah, once the source of my deepest pain, now became my only hope. The city, with its history of booms and busts, from the gold rush to the tech boom, reflected the highs and lows of our own journey. Our love, once a beacon as bright as the city's lights, was now flickering in the shadow of danger and uncertainty. San Francisco, a city that symbolizes resilience and reinvention, stood witness to our struggle. The picturesque views from Coit Tower, the bustling energy of Fisherman's Wharf, and the serene beauty of the Presidio were backdrops to our fight for survival, both as individuals and as a couple. As the city slept under a blanket of fog, I clung to the hope that Sarah and I could find our way back to each other, that we could rise from the ashes like San Francisco had time and again. But as the dawn broke over the bay, lighting up the city in a golden glow, the uncertainty of our fate hung in the air, as unpredictable as the city's ever-changing weather. In the heart of Chicago, amidst the towering skyscrapers and the bustling streets, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of betrayal and desperation. This city, known for its resilience and architectural marvels, now bore witness to the crumbling edifice of my marriage. Mark, a man who once had everything, now facing the greatest challenge of my life. Chicago, with its storied past, from the Great Fire to the Roaring Twenties, mirrored the tumult and chaos that had engulfed my life. As I sat in a dimly lit room, a prisoner of my own choices, Sarah, my estranged wife, was out there in the city, fighting to save me, to save us. Her task was monumental. She scrambled to gather the ransom money, her every move shadowed by the towering structures of the city, a stark reminder of the enormity of her undertaking. The windy city, with its relentless gusts, seemed to echo the turmoil within her. But the biggest shock was yet to come. Sarah discovered the unthinkable. The mastermind behind my kidnapping was none other than my own brother, the man she had an affair with. Betrayal upon betrayal. It was like the layers of Chicago's history, each one revealing a darker, more complex narrative. With the clock ticking, Sarah devised a desperate plan. She was determined to save me and confront the man who had caused this havoc. Her resolve mirrored the city's own tenacity, a place that had rebuilt itself from ashes to become a beacon of hope and strength. The showdown was inevitable. On the shores of Lake Michigan, under the shadow of the iconic skyline, Sarah faced my brother in a dramatic standoff. It was a scene straight out of a noir film, the city's gritty underbelly exposed in the rawest form. Meanwhile, I was trapped, both physically and emotionally, struggling to come to terms with the betrayal. The city's vast network of trains and bustling streets seemed like a metaphor for my own entangled thoughts, a maze with no clear way out. In a daring rescue mission, Sarah managed to free me, but the cost was high. The revelation of her affair with my brother, the extent of her betrayal, was a blow that I couldn't recover from. The skyscrapers of Chicago, once symbols of aspiration, now loomed over me like silent judges. As I walked the streets of Chicago, a free man yet a prisoner of my shattered heart, I realized the damage was irreparable. The city, with its blend of old and new, wealth and poverty, beauty and decay, was a reflection of our relationship, complex, flawed, and ultimately, broken beyond repair. I made the painful decision to leave Sarah for good. The city, which had seen so much history, was now the backdrop to the end of our story. As I left Chicago, the skyline receded in the distance, a poignant reminder of what could have been. The story closed with Sarah alone, a woman who had lost everything she held dear. In the silence of her solitude, she reflected on the irreversible consequences of her choices, much like the quiet after the city's bustling day. Chicago, a city that had witnessed the rise and fall of so many, had now seen the disintegration of our love. A love my world shattered when Sarah confessed her affair. I never saw it coming. We'd been married for 8 years, and to say I was blindsided would be an understatement. I remember the evening she dropped the bombshell. We were sitting in our living room, sipping on glasses of red wine. The TV was on, but I couldn't tell you what show was playing. The atmosphere was tense. I could feel it in the air. "Mark, we need to talk," Sarah said, her voice trembling. She put her wine glass down and took a deep breath. "What's wrong?" I asked, my heart racing. My mind raced through various scenarios, but infidelity wasn't one of them. "I've been seeing someone else," she admitted, tears welling up in her eyes. "And there's something else I need to tell you." My stomach churned as I tried to process her words. Seeing someone else? That alone was devastating. But what could be worse than that? She continued, "I've been thinking, Mark, about the idea of an open marriage. I want to explore my feelings for this other person. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. An open marriage? It was as if she just handed me a grenade and expected me not to pull the pin. The very thought of it was absurd, and my first instinct was to refuse. But then something unexpected happened. Maybe it was the shock, or the desperation to salvage our relationship. I hesitated for a moment, and then the words came out of my mouth. "I'll agree to an open marriage, Sarah, but on one condition." She looked at me, puzzled and cautious. "What condition?" "You have to let me have an affair too." Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief. She hadn't expected that response. I saw a mix of shock and confusion on her face. In that moment, it was as if we'd entered uncharted territory, and we were both unsure of the path ahead. After a tense silence, Sarah finally nodded reluctantly, thinking that I'd never go through with it. She assumed it was just a desperate attempt to hold on to her. Little did she know that I was dead serious. I had a plan, and it involved introducing her to someone who would turn her world upside down, just like she'd done to mine. I couldn't allow her to walk away unscathed after what she put me through. So, I decided to introduce Sarah to Emily, a woman I'd met through a friend. Emily was attractive, intelligent, and, most importantly, willing to play her part in my twisted game. As Sarah hesitantly embarked on her affair with a man she met online, named David, I watched from the shadows, plotting my revenge. I knew this was the beginning of a dangerous game, one that would test the limits of our marriage and the depths of our emotions. Little did Sarah know that her life was about to take a tumultuous turn, and she would soon experience the same pain and betrayal she'd inflicted upon me. As days turned into weeks, Sarah's affair with David deepened. It was like a dark cloud looming over our marriage, casting a shadow we couldn't escape. The lies and cover-ups became increasingly elaborate, and I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. Sarah would sneak around, texting David under the guise of work meetings or girls' nights out. Our once open and honest communication had turned into a web of deception. I felt like a detective, piecing together the fragments of her secret life. One evening, I overheard her whispering to David on the phone in the bedroom. She thought I was asleep, but every word cut deeper into my heart. I couldn't escape the reality that our marriage was unraveling before my eyes. As if the situation wasn't complicated enough, Emily entered the picture. She had initially agreed to be my affair partner, but her feelings for me were becoming more than just physical attraction. I could sense it in the way she looked at me, the way she touched my arm when we were together. It was a dangerous game, and I was starting to lose control. The tension and jealousy between the four of us were palpable. Sarah would shoot me icy glares when she saw Emily and me talking or laughing together. Emily, on the other hand, would become distant whenever she suspected Sarah and I were spending time alone. One evening, Sarah confronted me about Emily's growing presence in my life. Accusations flew, and we argued like we never had before. It was a toxic mix of anger, betrayal, and resentment. Our marriage was hanging by a thread, and we both knew it. Then came the bombshell. Sarah was pregnant. She hesitantly told me, her eyes filled with uncertainty. My heart sank as I grappled with the overwhelming question, was this child mine or David's? Suspicion gnawed at me like a relentless beast. The timing was too perfect, too suspicious. I couldn't ignore the possibility that this baby might not be mine. It was a painful realization that tore at the last remnants of trust in our marriage. Sarah's pregnancy intensified the strain between us. The questions, the doubts, and the betrayal had pushed us to the brink. Our relationship was hanging on by a thread, and we were both drowning in a sea of uncertainty. The future was uncertain, and the path ahead seemed darker than ever. David's relentless pressure on Sarah to leave me for him had become unbearable. He saw her vulnerability and exploited it, using the threat of revealing their affair as a weapon to manipulate her. I could see the toll it was taking on Sarah, and it fueled my determination to bring this twisted game to an end. One evening, after another heated argument with David, Sarah reached a breaking point. She couldn't bear the weight of his ultimatum any longer. Desperation painted her face as she finally decided to confide in someone, and that someone was her best friend, Lisa. Lisa was always there for Sarah, a pillar of strength in her life. She had a way of soothing Sarah's fears and providing a listening ear. So, when Sarah poured her heart out about the affair and the threats, she expected comfort and advice. But what Sarah didn't expect was the bombshell Lisa dropped next. In a hushed and uneasy tone, Lisa admitted, "Sarah, there's something I need to tell you. I've been seeing David for months." Sarah's world crumbled. The person she trusted the most, the one she confided in, had betrayed her in the worst possible way. It was as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet, leaving her in free fall. As the shock settled in, Sarah began to connect the dots. David and Lisa had been working together all along, using her as a pawn in their twisted game to gain control over my life and manipulate our marriage. It was a cruel and calculated plan that had pushed us all to the brink. With newfound clarity and a burning anger, Sarah decided to confront David and Lisa. She couldn't let them continue to hold her hostage with their threats and lies. The confrontation was inevitable, and the stakes were higher than ever. When the moment finally came, it was a whirlwind of emotions. Accusations flew, voices rose, and tempers flared. Sarah was no longer the vulnerable woman they thought they could control. She had found her strength, her voice, and she was determined to put an end to their treacherous scheme. In the heat of the argument, the threat of exposure hung in the air like a sword dangling by a thread. David and Lisa realized that their house of cards was teetering on the edge of collapse, and their desperate attempts to maintain control were slipping through their fingers. The confrontation marked a turning point in our tangled web of deceit and betrayal. The battle lines were drawn, and it was clear that no one would emerge from this unscathed. The coming days promised more twists, more turmoil, and a reckoning that none of us could have foreseen. The tension in our lives had reached a boiling point, and Sarah and I knew that it was time to take action. We had both been ensnared in David and Lisa's deceitful plan for far too long. It was time to turn the tables. With newfound determination, we decided to work together. Our common enemy was a formidable duo, but we were fueled by a burning desire for justice. We couldn't let David and Lisa continue to manipulate our lives and threaten our marriage. Our first step was to gather evidence against them. We started by documenting every interaction, every text message, and every piece of information that could expose their web of lies. It was a painstaking process, but we were meticulous in our efforts. As we dug deeper, we uncovered a tangled web of deception. David and Lisa had been orchestrating their plan for months, weaving an intricate tapestry of lies and betrayal. It was a chilling revelation that made us even more determined to expose them. Once we had gathered enough evidence, we knew it was time to confront David and Lisa. It was a nerve-wracking moment, but we couldn't let fear hold us back any longer. We demanded that they leave our lives forever, that their reign of manipulation and deceit come to an end. The confrontation was tense, to say the least. Accusations flew, tempers flared, and the air was thick with anger and resentment. David and Lisa, cornered and exposed, had no choice but to reluctantly agree to leave. But as they walked away, they vowed revenge with a chilling determination in their eyes. With their departure, There was a sense of relief, but the scars of their betrayal ran deep. Sarah and I were left to pick up the pieces of our shattered lives, and our marriage bore the damage. Our relationship was strained, trust had been eroded, and the wounds were far from healed. But we were determined to rebuild. Slowly, we began the arduous process of rebuilding trust, of finding our way back to each other. It was a journey filled with ups and downs, moments of doubt and insecurity, but there was a newfound resilience in our bond, a shared experience of betrayal that had forged an unbreakable connection. As we navigated the turbulent waters of our marriage, we held on to the hope that, someday, we would emerge from this stronger than ever. The aftermath of the chaos brought by David and Lisa had left me emotionally battered. I felt like a ship adrift in a stormy sea, unable to find my way back to calmer waters. Desperation led me to seek help where I could find it: therapy. I started attending therapy sessions, trying to cope with the emotional trauma caused by the affair. My therapist, Dr. Foster, was a no-nonsense kind of guy. He cut straight to the heart of the matter, forcing me to confront my pain head-on. Therapy wasn't easy. It was like ripping open old wounds, but I knew it was necessary. Dr. Foster helped me dissect the emotions I'd been suppressing for far too long. The anger, the betrayal, the insecurity. It was a slow and painful process, but it was a step towards healing. During this tumultuous time, Sarah had an unexpected surprise for us. She gave birth to our child, a tiny bundle of joy in the midst of our turmoil. I knew there was a possibility that the baby might not be mine, but I made a decision. I would raise this child as my own, regardless of its true paternity. It was my way of reaffirming my commitment to our family. As we navigated the challenges of parenthood together, Sarah and I found our love deepening. The bond between us grew stronger with each passing day. We were more committed than ever to rebuilding our family and forging a brighter future. But little did we know that the shadows of our past still loomed. David and Lisa, consumed by their thirst for revenge, were secretly plotting our downfall. They couldn't stand the thought of us finding happiness again, and they were determined to destroy the newfound peace in our lives. Their plan was sinister: to expose the paternity of Sarah's child and create chaos within our family. It was a cruel and calculated move, one that threatened to tear us apart once more. As the storm clouds of revenge gathered on the horizon, Sarah and I remained blissfully unaware of the impending danger. We were too focused on our love, our family, and the future we were building together. Little did we know that the past would come back to haunt us, and the battle for our happiness was far from over. Just when we thought we were on the path to healing, a sinister storm descended upon us. An anonymous letter arrived one gloomy morning, and its contents would turn our lives upside down. The letter contained a DNA test report, and the words on it struck like a dagger to my heart. It claimed to prove that I was not the father of Sarah's child. The shock of it was overwhelming, and I felt like I was drowning in a sea of despair. I confronted Sarah with the letter in trembling hands, tears blurring my vision. The trust we had been painstakingly rebuilding was shattered in an instant. I demanded a paternity test to confirm the child's true father, desperately hoping that the report was a cruel hoax. The day of the paternity test was a tortuous waiting game. The tension between Sarah and me was unbearable, and the silence was deafening. I tried to hold on to hope, but doubt gnawed at me like a relentless beast. When the results finally arrived, they were like a death sentence. The paternity test confirmed what the anonymous letter had claimed. I was not the biological father of Sarah's child. My world crumbled around me, and the pain was indescribable. With tears streaming down her face, Sarah finally confessed the truth. She admitted to her affair with David, the lies, the betrayal. It all spilled out like a torrent of guilt and regret. My heart ached as I listened to her words, but forgiveness felt like an impossible mountain to climb. The betrayal was too deep, the wounds too raw. I couldn't find it in my heart to forgive Sarah for her actions in the web of deceit that had torn our marriage apart. The love we had once shared was buried beneath the weight of our mistakes. In a decision that felt like the final nail in the coffin of our relationship, I made the agonizing choice to leave Sarah. Our journey, which had started with hope and love, had taken us through a harrowing storm of lies and betrayal. And in the end, It was a storm that had broken us beyond repair. The fallout from the paternity test was catastrophic, and it left a trail of destruction in its wake. Sarah lost everything: her marriage, her family, and her happiness. It was as if her world had crumbled into a million pieces, and there was no way to put it back together. With the results confirming that I was not the biological father of her child, I gained custody, severing Sarah's ties to her own offspring. The pain in her eyes as she said goodbye to our child was a heart-wrenching sight. It was a harsh reminder of the choices we had made and the consequences we had to face. Sarah spiraled into a deep abyss of depression and isolation. The weight of her choices bore down on her like an unrelenting burden. The guilt and regret were suffocating, and she withdrew from the world, drowning in her own sorrow. Meanwhile, David and Lisa reveled in their revenge, but it didn't bring them the satisfaction they had expected. Their victory was hollow. Their triumph over our suffering left a bitter taste in their mouths. It was a stark reminder that vengeance often comes at a high cost. As for me and our child, we had to move on without Sarah. It was a painful process, but we were determined to rebuild our lives. The wounds were still fresh, the scars still visible, but we carried on, trying to find a semblance of normalcy in the chaos that had become our lives. The chapter ended with a profound sense of loss and sadness. Our family had been shattered, and the future felt uncertain. It was a stark reminder that the choices we make in life can have far-reaching consequences, and sometimes there's no going back. As the dust settled on the wreckage of our marriage, Sarah was left in the wake of her choices, searching for a way to redeem herself. She was desperate for forgiveness and redemption, and it led her down a path she never expected. Sarah reached out to a support group for people who had lost everything due to their mistakes. It was a place where the broken found solace and a glimmer of hope. She attended meetings, sharing her story with others who had walked a similar path of betrayal and loss. It was in this support group that Sarah met Dr. Wilson, a kind-hearted therapist who had dedicated her life to helping people confront their actions and make amends. Dr. Wilson saw the pain in Sarah's eyes, the regret that weighed heavy on her heart. She became a guiding light on Sarah's journey toward healing and forgiveness. Meanwhile, I decided to start dating again. It was a daunting prospect, but I couldn't let the past dictate my future. I met Karen, a woman who understood my history and the scars I carried. She was patient and empathetic, providing a safe space for me to rebuild my trust in love. Sarah, on the other hand, began to realize the importance of self-forgiveness. She knew that she couldn't change the past, but she could shape her future. She embarked on a journey of self-discovery, rebuilding her life independently and finding her own path to happiness. As for David and Lisa, their relationship crumbled under the weight of guilt and remorse. Their revenge had backfired, leaving them with a bitter taste in their mouths. The love they had once shared had been tainted by their actions, and the cracks in their partnership grew wider with each passing day. The chapter ended with a glimmer of Sarah was on a path of redemption, Dr. Wilson guiding her toward healing. I had found a new love in Karen, someone who understood my past. And as for David and Lisa, they were left to grapple with the consequences of their actions, learning that revenge was a bitter pill to swallow. Dr. Wilson had become a guiding presence in Sarah's life, encouraging her to focus on personal growth and self-improvement. It wasn't an easy journey, but Sarah was determined to rebuild herself from the ground up. She attended therapy sessions regularly, delving deep into the roots of her mistakes and seeking a path to redemption. Meanwhile, my life had taken a different turn. I had found love again, this time with Karen. Our relationship had blossomed, and I knew I was ready to move on from my tumultuous past. It was with a sense of hope and renewed purpose that I proposed to Karen, eager to build a future together. As for Sarah, she found a new purpose in helping others who had faced similar challenges. The support group had become her sanctuary, a place where she could connect with those seeking redemption and healing. It was a way for her to give back, to use her own experiences to guide others on their path to recovery. Sarah's support group grew, becoming a haven for individuals who had lost their way but were determined to find it again. Together, they shared their stories, their pain, and their hopes for a brighter future. It was a testament to the power of redemption and the resilience of the human spirit. Then, Unexpectedly, Sarah and I crossed paths at a community event. We were both changed by our past experiences, carrying the scars of our mistakes. The encounter was filled with mixed emotions, regret, nostalgia, and a sense of closure. We had both walked different paths, but our shared history would forever bind us in a way that no one else could understand. As the chapter came to a close, it was a reminder that life was a journey filled with twists and turns, with pain and redemption. Sarah and I had faced our demons, and while our paths had diverged, we had each found our own way to heal and rebuild. The future was uncertain, but we had hope, and that was enough to keep moving forward. In an unexpected turn of events, Sarah offered me a sincere apology. Her words were filled with remorse and a genuine desire to make amends for the pain she had caused. I couldn't deny the growth I had seen in her, the journey she had embarked on toward redemption. I acknowledged her efforts, and while I appreciated her apology, I remained committed to my new life with Karen. The wounds of the past were still there, and I knew that forgiveness didn't always mean reconciliation. We had both changed, and our paths had diverged irreversibly. As for David and Lisa, their lives continued to unravel as they faced the consequences of their actions. The weight of their revenge had left them with a heavy burden. Guilt and remorse gnawed at their souls, and the satisfaction they had hoped for remained elusive. Sarah, on the other hand, had become a beacon of hope for others who had faced similar challenges. Her support group had grown, and she embraced her new life with a sense of purpose and meaning. She had found peace within herself, a redemption she had worked tirelessly to achieve. The story took its final turn when I and Karen decided to marry, forging a new, strong, and loving family. It was a celebration of our love, a testament to our ability to heal and find happiness even after devastating mistakes. As the final chapter came to a close, it was a reminder that forgiveness and self-improvement could lead to a brighter future, even after the darkest of times.